Hey everybody. Okay, so in this video, we are going to talk about the future of future projects. And again, with me today is Dre, aka Vash Sky. Hi, Dre.
Hello there. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Doing okay. Holding up fairly well. Happy to be here.
Good, good. Happy to have you again. Happy to have you. So today we're going to talk about, how the whole shutdown situation with COVID-19 is affecting future projects for the Disney parks. And I touched upon this in a video the other day, but I wanted to kind of deep dive with you in regards to this subject matter. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Avengers Campus. Now, what are your thoughts in regards to how this shutdown is going to affect Avengers Campus? We know it's been officially delayed, but can you expand upon that at all in terms of what you feel is going to be happening here with this?
Um, Depending on what route they go, you might see some aspects of it maybe delayed longer than others. The indoor restaurant portion might be looked at differently. They might enforce some social distancing guidelines while inside of that. Maybe Spider-Man doesn't open on day one. I know there's a show. There's the Doctor Strange show. Looks like it's going to be mostly outside, and that connects to some larger points, but we'll get into those later. So what you might see is kind of mini phased openings within Avengers Campus when it does actually come online. It's gonna depend on, I guess, uh, if they want to ramp up construction before the parks actually officially open. That's kind of what I foresee a little bit. I know they started some construction projects um, before they actually, I'm sorry, right after they closed to kind of like take advantage of, hey, there's not going to be any guests for the foreseeable future. Let's start on that, and then they put those on pause. I'm thinking we're going to see a reverse of that when they actually announce maybe an opening date. So phase one of Avengers Campus is still going forward, obviously, because they're just so far deep into it. Um, but you might see a little bit of alteration on those plans maybe initially. What is most concerning though is phase two. That might be in jeopardy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you about phase two. In terms of phase one, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I agree. I mean, they will definitely finish it. They have to at this point. They can't leave it a construction site. But
Right.
you did mention something though that was interesting, which I actually didn't really connect the dots until just now, until you just mentioned it, was the Doctor Strange show.
Yeah.
Because it's always been my assumption that when the parks reopen, they're probably not going to have shows like parades and fireworks because those kind of those entertainment offerings tend to attract really crowded spaces, people gathering closely together
Sure.
and whatnot. So I wonder if that Doctor Strange show, like you said, I mean, maybe these things aren't going to all open at once. Maybe the land will open, but because Doctor Strange is an entertainment offering and they don't want people to congregate in large numbers close together, maybe that show is going to be pushed back indefinitely.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's always possible. It's going to be interesting to see how they plan to corral people, or if they do plan to corral people, and if they do plan on maybe setting up a way or a system of stating, hey, you've got to be spread out somewhat before you can see this entertainment offering, or before you can, something that happens within queues and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that. I know some news came to light today where Shanghai is attempting to test out some procedures, some methodologies, and getting people back in there. One of the things that came to light on social media, some insider stated that they're testing out theaters, and they're testing out seating configurations. And the seating configuration they're working with is a family. This is with cast members, but having them grouped into a family style, maybe 4, 5, 6 people, having seats in between them, and then having every other row utilized. They're trying some things out to see whether or not it's manageable, whether or not capacity is sufficient. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do any of those. I don't know if you'd call it social engineering, but some of those social distancing measures in the States, and whether or not people are going to be receptive to that, and whether or not they're going to hard enforce that, and how they go about that. It's very interesting.
That is interesting, actually. That's very interesting that they're going to kind of break the audience down into like the family groups,
Yeah.
and kind of separate them like their own little pods, so to speak. Family A, family B. That's a very interesting concept, and yeah, I could see that working potentially. I'm not really privy to the numbers in terms of capacity and whatnot. I'm not really privy to all that stuff, but that might work. That might really work. I mean, that might be a better option than just having maybe one seat in between each person, because at least then you're with your family, but you're separated from other people that you don't know.
Yeah.
What they have. Not to be crude, but no, you don't know what they have. So I mean, yeah, that's definitely a possible solution, so to speak.
I think it is. If you separate people, seat to seat to seat to seat to seat, again, that doesn't really have any, it doesn't have families group up. When you group up families in that way, I think they're thinking in terms of capacity too. You might be able to get additional capacity when you do that. So it's all going to be a variety of factors. I mean, look, Team Disney Anaheim, Team Disney Orlando, Disney in general, the Disney Parks division, are some of the best people in finding solutions to problems like these. They work with people, thousands, tens of thousands every day. They know kind of what people will do, what people won't do. Their testing methodology is really sound. They've been working crowds of people, for 50, 60 plus years now. So they've got a lot of experience at it. This obviously is taken to a realm that they've never really, gone into before. But if anybody's going to figure this equation out, it's going to be them. I'm pretty confident of that.
Yeah, that is one thing that Disney really excels in, is figuring these kind of, they've had 60 plus years of figuring out how to move people, right? And they really are the experts in this. And I think you're right. They're going to find a solution where they're going to be able to get people in the parks, enjoying the attractions, enjoying the shows, and doing it in a way that's going to, still be safe. Within reason. I mean, you're never 100% safe. You never know. You still might get something, but within reason, I think they're going to do a good job at managing this. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Now, you did mention the Spider-Man web slinger attraction.
Yeah.
What do you think? Okay, now you mentioned it might be delayed. It might not open on day one. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that attraction when it does open? Are they going to be not filling these vehicles to capacity? Are they going to be are they going to have cast members wiping them down with Clorox wipes? Or what do you think is going to be the methodology when this attraction does open? Because it is interactive. We know it is. So there's probably going to be a lot of touching involved with the vehicles and stuff, I would imagine. This is just an assumption, but all these interactive attractions usually have some pretty heavy contact with the vehicles themselves. So what's your feeling on what they're going to do when this opens? Are they going to implement cleaning every vehicle or whatnot? Or
I've thought about this a little bit, broadly speaking, with a number, with all of their attractions, and it seems the most likely thing to me would be that one cast member on each side of each vehicle that comes into whatever station that you have wipes down their side of it between each dispatch of a vehicle, between each cycle of guests. So once a guest departs, you have a cast member come in, two cast members come in, wipe down both their sides. Guests then immediately get on that immediately get on that vehicle and go. That's kind of what I envision it. If you want to get to that point where you're cleaning each vehicle, I'd say you could at least implement that, on the interactive attractions like you stated, maybe Buzz Lightyear, Astro Blasters, Toy Story Mania, and now Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. I think you could see a world where those specific attractions are wiped down, and those specific vehicles are wiped down before guests board. When it comes to Spider-Man itself, it looks like a 4x4 configuration, or like a bench seat configuration on each side of a vehicle. Is that what you saw there in the concept art?
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole row. It's a bench. It's like Mission Breakout essentially, where you sit, side by side on these long rows.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, I think I don't think you'll have to implore any social distancing when it comes to that attraction specifically, because you are just dealing with a single family on each side. I think and to your point about interactivity, I thought the interactivity from there was going to be completely, not hands free, but wireless, and that you weren't going to be dealing with anything specific. I thought you were just going to be able to put your hand out and, using the technology of Imagineering, be able to get a web out. Thought that's how it was going to work. Now I know with the glasses specifically, Disney already washes, all 3D glasses for all their 3D based attractions, so I know that's not going to be an issue. But I thought with Spider-Man specifically, I thought there wasn't going to be very much physical touching of anything. I could be wrong though. Maybe you might have more information on that.
No, that would actually be, from what I understand, it's supposed to be like a web slinger, like you move your hand and it throws the web, but there's not going to be anything that attaches to you or anything like that. It's just going to be like a sensor.
From what I understand, and there's already an attraction that uses this technology. I forget what that attraction is right now. It's at Legoland, I believe.
Oh, Ninjago.
Yeah. There you go. I will never be able to get that one. But yeah. And if you see, there's nothing that you interact with physically. It literally is, you stretch your hand out, and I believe in that attraction you throw fireballs or something.
Okay, cool.
It's very, very similar to that. So that's the saving grace right there. It's kind of already meets the criteria, if you're going to establish criteria for this, immediate normal.
Yeah. Now I do want to mention another thing too, in terms of public perception. And what I mean by that is, what are your feelings of okay, so let's say, for example, since we're on the topic of Avengers Campus, let's talk about, the web slinger attraction. So let's say the cast members don't wipe down everything. Let's just say they let people board normally, right?
Mm-hmm.
But instead of wiping things down, what they do is at the exit, they simply advise you, here's a hand sanitizer station, you should use it, or you should use it before you leave, or whatnot. Do you think the public would go for something like that, where the cast members aren't wiping these down between each party, and just kind of suggesting when you exit to go ahead and just sanitize your hands? Or is that not going to be enough optics wise?
Optics is optics, you never know how people are going to react, truly. I think they would. I think I had recommended on our last show that they have hand washing station. I'm sorry, not hand washing stations, but hand sanitizing stations immediately when you actually disembark from a vehicle, and you just have it right there, and you can go ahead and engage it right there, and you're all in the clear. Everything that we're saying right now is a hypothetical. We really don't know truly what they're going to do. But in lieu of a sanitizing before each vehicle, which, sometimes you might get into a situation like Haunted Mansion. How's that going to work? It might not be always practical to do that. Capacity reasons, or, a variety of other factors. I think people might be, I think they might understand that. You might have an advisory, before each vehicle goes on. Hey, don't touch your face while you're in the vehicle, and be sure to hand sanitize immediately after. Whatever stations are implemented. There you go. I think they would. I think they might be receptive to that. Look, when you're going to these places, you're going to have to act maybe a little bit differently than you otherwise might. I think that's going to be well understood when you actually go into the theme park in general, and that's going to carry over to the attractions.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think people when they go into these theme parks, you made a good point there. I think that when they go into these theme parks, the mentality is going to be different, and I think people are going to kind of do a lot of self-care to begin with. Obviously, I think you're going to see a lot of masks, even if they're not mandated. You're going to see a lot of them. I think you're going to see a lot of hand washing and stuff. I think people are generally smart enough to know that, like, we just got out of a pandemic or we're still in one. You're going to have to wash your hands more than normal. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a lot of that self-care where Disney doesn't have to be like the nanny necessarily.
Right.
100%. They're going to do what they can do realistically, but at the end of the day, they're going to kind of leave it up to you to make sure that your hygiene is 100,
Yeah, and it's going to, the other point that's going to be very interesting is, maybe an issue of liability. Maybe it's like, hey, once you enter our theme parks, you understand that, we are going to do everything to keep you as safe as possible, but there is still a chance, and there's just the unknown, and you have to be willing to engage in that if you want to engage in our theme parks. I think that's going to, and to expand that out, I think that's going to go for every single business that comes online here. You just kind of have to know, hey, look, there's a chance, and they can do a lot of stuff to mitigate that chance, but there still is a chance, and that you can expand that out. And there was a measles outbreak with Disneyland a few years ago. These things do happen. And so I don't think it's completely unreasonable to suggest, hey, look, we're going to do everything we can possible, but there's still a chance. And I think people are willing to make that determination for themselves. And I think you might get a lot more response than people might think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't even be surprised to that point if we see some signage, before you enter, the turnstiles,
Yep.
kind of what you touched upon, basically, like, we're trying everything to mitigate the risk, but there is still a risk. Enter at your own, I don't want to say enter at your own peril, but you know what I'm saying? Like, enter at your own risk, and nothing is 100%, basically,
Exactly. I don't think that's too unreasonable. I hear from people on various social media websites where they'll say stuff like, well, Disneyland's not going to open until a vaccine comes out. It's like, well, you're assuming a lot there. You're assuming that a vaccine will actually be found, but you're also assuming that a vaccine is going to be effective, and you're assuming that it's not going to mutate into something else that isn't, that where a vaccine is useless at that point.
Right.
The parks need to open. They just do. I believe Disney's stock was just downgraded again because, of analysts fearing the worst for the parks division. It is that impactful on the overall Disney empire, if you want to call it that. So the parks, if we're going to be living in a world here where there's going to be some overlap, we're still going to be in a pandemic, and the parks need to open. What can we do, or what can Disney do to mitigate that spread, to mitigate that transmission, to make it as safe as possible? And I think that is a much more interesting conversation to me. I think that is a much more intriguing way to go about it, because right now we're using these kind of blunt force tactics to reduce the spread and reduce the curve, so to speak. But again, we're going to have to get back to some level of normalcy. Some of these things are going to have to reopen. How do we do that safely, and how do we do that effectively as possible while taking the attributes of this of this virus into account? Again, like there was an article posted by Yahoo News that stated that some preliminary data was suggesting that this really might be affected by sunlight, high temperatures, high humidity. I'll read you the first paragraph here. Preliminary results from government lab experiments show that the coronavirus does not survive long in high temperatures and high humidity and is quickly destroyed by sunlight, providing evidence from controlled tests of what scientists believed but had not yet proved to be true. Again, if that, and that's an anecdotal example, obviously, and those tests are preliminary, but if that comes out to be true, I think it'll be kind of foolish looking back. We kept everybody inside and we kept these things closed in summer when we could have done something. So we got to be smart about this. We really got to be engaged in this and try to find a way to balance the public health, but also provide a way for these things to be open and people to enjoy themselves and people to get out and get some vitamin D. And
Right.
it might end up being a very beneficial thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's been studies, and I'm not a doctor. I mean, don't take my advice I'm not a doctor, but I've seen a lot of studies done about what you were saying, vitamin D, improving the immune system. It helps you fight off a lot of cold and flu bugs and what have you. So like you said, maybe it's good that we all get outside a little bit, and get some sunlight. It doesn't hurt, that's for sure.
I think so. And I believe we'll be talking about Epcot in this discussion, and I have some ideas about that, but let's go ahead.
Okay. And I also do want to mention, before I move on to the next future attraction or whatnot, I wanted to also bring up, you heard about that guy that homeless, I think he's homeless or transient guy that tried to break into Avengers Campus.
You see, people want to go back to the park so much that no, I'm joking. No, I did hear about that, and apparently he was breaking into the construction site, looking to get some tools or whatever he can scavenge off of that. And I mean, it's you've got again, people are looking at this as an opportunity. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah. These things are still staffed by people.
Exactly.
Don't go into these places when they're offline. Okay, these are high valued assets to the company. Trust me, they are protecting themselves. But it's very interesting how people view these as soft targets. Maybe
it is pretty crazy. The times we live in right now, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Oh man. It's insane. Now, you were telling me before we actually started here that somebody actually broke into Tokyo Disneyland. Is that right?
That is also, yep, exactly. I believe it's their shopping district.
Oh,
so
no.
We have another one today trying to break into Tokyo. So I don't know if this is some sort of like formings of a revolution. People are gonna get into the park, and
we want to go back in.
Yeah,
you're seeing a bunch of protests, man. Eventually, there might be some protests outside the parks. We want to go back in. Come on, which is insane. But I don't know. I think a park that's active, a park that's on operational is better for all, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, pivoting to the next attraction for Disneyland Resort that's currently under construction is Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Now, this attraction, they had to bulldoze a backstage building, which I think was, and I could be mistaken on this, but I think it was, it basically housed entertainment stuff, and they bulldozed that, and I think they're right now in the process of like digging a foundation and whatnot for the new attraction. What are your thoughts about the future of that? I mean, I personally think that they kind of have to now that they kind of bulldoze the backstage stuff. But what are your thoughts? Do you think this thing's going to open? Is it going to be delayed? What are your feelings on it?
Well, anybody can make arguments for and against. I think the for, though, I think you've got quite a bit of ammunition to work with here. So if we go back here, they didn't just have to bulldoze a building, but a lot of backstage facilities out there that were being utilized in that space that this thing was going to occupy. They have actually had to relocate a lot of those people, a lot of those personnel, a lot of those facilities in order to make way for this attraction. So it wasn't just bulldoze a building, build one, there you go. You had to do some, relocation to
Wow.
nearby surrounding areas just to facilitate this attraction to be built in that location. Additionally, we've already had a successful implementation of this attraction over in Florida. Again, the idea was for this specific attraction to make it all the way around the world. I mean, from what I understand, the Oriental Land Company executives, they just flipped out when they saw the technology being implemented in this attraction specifically, and they ordered a version of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway immediately after seeing it, which is very rare for them. They're very fiscally responsible, if you want to put it that mildly. I mean, they're very much like, if it doesn't blow us away, don't even bring it up. I mean, you should have seen the conversations that they had with stuff like Avatar and Star Wars. It was just like, not for us. But Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, they were really inspired by that. So I think these things do go forward. It's going to be interesting to see what the timeline is surrounding it. But because they've already sunk so many development dollars into getting one of these up, a lot of that development dollars has already been spent. It's monetarily speaking, it's a lot less money to build a clone of something or an adaptation of something that already exists, rather than having to work up everything from scratch. So I think all those kind of reasonings included, I think we see Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Now, will it open on time? Will it open in 2022? Probably not. Maybe it opens in 2023. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good point. The R&D is already there. Research and development is already there. They already finished one. To be honest with you, they probably already have a lot of the animatronics and stuff like that. The physical sets probably already built for our attraction, because they probably, whoever they sent those off to, they paid for two of them, and they probably built two, and there's probably a lot of stuff. I think we'd be surprised it's probably already completed and just sitting in some warehouse waiting to be installed.
That could be a possibility. I mean, Disney likes to work on kind of a bulk rate system, because they understand that it's a lot cheaper to build two than it is to build just one. In the long run speaking, that's why we see a lot of attractions opening up at the same time on multiple coasts and so forth. So I think you're right. I think they have a lot of that stuff in the process. They've already sent fab work out to, whatever contractors that they have and stuff like that. I think that still goes forward. I really do.
Okay. Yeah, that's my feeling too. Is I think that they're kind of too far along, and like you said, it wasn't even like it's even more extensive than I thought, because I thought they just demolished one building backstage, but from what you're saying, it's like they relocated stuff. It's multiple buildings. That's a huge process, and to spend that kind of money to do all that, and then just to kind of say, nah, we're not going to do it. I can't see that happening. I really, I agree. I think it's probably going to be delayed. It probably won't make that 2022 date, but it's going to happen.
Importantly, you're going to have to get that momentum back up. So you're going to have a level of investment to really tell people, hey, look, come down here, see this new thing. And so I don't think it's necessarily responsible to just say cut all projects, no matter what they are, no matter what condition that they're in. Like we can't live with this level of investment, or we can't. It's not a cost that we undertake right now. Some of that does happen. Don't get me wrong. I think the Star Wars Hotel is one of those things. It's like it's like on a complete opposite plane of what we're talking about here, and I do fear for that specific project. But when it comes to stuff like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Avengers Campus, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Tron out in Walt Disney World, I think those things definitely go forward, because it's just like, look, we attractions get people in the door. They get vacations booked. They get rooms full, and it's fiscally irresponsible to stop those cold just because of everything being so volatile. So I think that's a calculation that they'll make, and I think they'll make the right one. It's just going to be interesting to see when things start to calm down you know, will they be able to generate enough revenue to really greenlight these things, and when will that be?
It's interesting. You mentioned the Star Wars hotel. Would you like to try to elaborate? Let's dig into let's dive into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel that particular project, because that one also has started construction, they're actually pretty far along. Why do you feel that particular project is in peril? Why do you feel like that one is the one that might not quite make it?
I think for multiple reasons. If you looked at what happened after 9/11, you look at what projects went through, what projects didn't. They had a project that was being constructed in the form of a new hotel, being the Pop Century Resort, and it was supposed to have two distinct wings. It was supposed to have kind of the modern era and the legacy era, or the classic era. And the modern era, or what is say the I believe the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that went through. But the classic era, the 20s, 30s, and 40s, that didn't go through. That wasn't completed, and they literally left that property vacant. I mean, they had walls up. They had, I believe, 2 out of the 3 buildings already built up, and they were in the process of completing rooms, and they just stopped that project cold dead in its tracks, because at that time, I mean, there were whole wings of the Grand Floridian that just weren't used. They just closed them off secretly, hush hush. But they were like, there's our occupancy rates are down so far. We don't need more hotel space. So that project kind of was paused and outright canceled, because that's what they used for the Art of Animation Resort. They actually used those rooms that they were making for the Pop Century into the what they used for Art of Animation. So I think if history can teach us anything, it's that it might be a slow buildup, and because of that, the last thing that they're going to need is more hotel room space. And so that's why whenever we've heard some resorts, some new hotels, some things coming online in the next, in the not too distant future for Walt Disney World, I think those projects specifically, those might get the hold. Those might get, pushed back. But the Star Wars hotel, I picked that out for a number of reasons. One, they were already kind of on the edge with that project. They were already kind of unsure about it, unsure of its viability, unsure of its success rate. I know Bob Chapek was very high on that project, but not too many other people were. I know at one point it was supposed to have 1,500 rooms. Then it became 1,000. Then it became 800. And then it became 100, with the ability to flex and to be added on to if it is successful. So they were already kind of on the fence about it.
Wow.
It was already going to take amazing investment, amazing dollars, in order to maintain everything, in order to build everything, in order to implement everything that they wanted to do with that hotel. And so it was already going to be a costly venture. Again, we were looking at the economic success of the last, I'd say, 10 years of the economy building. And this was, this project was a thing you could do during prosperous times. Right. And now that might be in jeopardy. And so already it's like, uh-oh. And now when you're talking about social distancing and what the capabilities of this virus are, does the Galactic Star Cruiser, does that lend itself to that?
Well, that's an interesting point. And from what I understand, mm-hmm. this Galactic Cruiser it behaves more like a cruise ship than it does a hotel, where you have an X amount of people in this space together for an X amount of time.
Yep.
And you're kind of in that space with that same group for whatever length of time it is. So it is very much like a cruise ship. And we all know with this pandemic that cruise ships didn't fare too well in terms of the spread,
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. People being in these close spaces together for long periods of time.
Right.
So that's interesting. That's interesting because when I made my video, I kind of focused more on, well, the construction and, it's so far ahead, they've already have a building up. But I didn't really, and that's why I love having you on, because you always bring some new ideas and get my brain going.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that in terms of the aspect of like it being that it's just not pandemic friendly, so to speak.
It's not when you look at a pre and post COVID world, does it actually make it to the other side? Man, that's tough. That might be a thing where it's like we need a vaccine before we can have really guests in here and piling in. Because you're exactly right. The cruise line industry took a big hit. It took a big hit. People called them like floating petri dishes. So, and it's amazing that Disney really got out unscathed from that. There really wasn't any notable outbreaks to speak of on any of the Disney cruise lines. And again, are they making like 2 or 3 more ships now? It's like, what's going to happen there? But when it comes to the Galactic Star Cruiser, to even take it a step further from the cruise line, remember, it's going to be very interactive. It's going to be something that's like, you're going to be touching a lot of surfaces. You're going to be interacting with your environment in ways that are just not possible or not feasible in a theme park environment. So it even goes beyond a cruise line. It goes beyond what you would maybe traditionally think of a themed entertainment experience. It's going to be, like you said, it's not very pandemic friendly. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting to see how that project fares and how, if it comes out the other side, or if they just put it on hold indefinitely and they kind of wait it out. It's possible for that too.
Yeah, I think they might. I mean, again, they eventually used the buildings like that I spoke to, with the Pop Century Resort. They eventually use them. I don't think it goes away forever. I just think if you're looking at all the projects in the slate, and again, I believe there was like $25 billion worth of projects going on actively before the shutdown occurred. There might be less now with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge fully coming on board and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway out there and Walt Disney World coming on board, but there were still billions of dollars being invested in these projects all around the world. And if you want to look at the slate, if you want to look at all the projects individually, and you want to pinpoint maybe ones that make it, don't make the cut, maybe get delayed, whatever, I think the Galactic Star Cruiser is right up there. I think it's one of those things that's just like, yes, but not right now.
Yeah. No, I'm coming around to that side of the argument for sure. After talking to you, I see that. I see the potential for a lot of issues if they were to open that in this environment, for sure.
I do too, and I don't mean to get too pessimistic on you, but you've seen how there's an Orlando Weekly article that was just published a few days ago by Ken Story, and it's Orlando's hotels and theme parks will eventually reopen, but things will never be the same, and it goes into like all these things that I guess from their opinion of like how they would change, how Disney might change the theme park operation, and how these industries might be affected. And it's a little bleak, but I mean, things are going to be changed in the immediate future. Will it affect projects going forward to bring it all back? I'm not quite sure. I think this, I think as new treatments maybe come online, as testing kind of expands, as things come online to deal with this, maybe the problems that are associated with it right now, maybe they look a little bit differently in the future. But you think about like fingerprint scanners,
right?
Like, are fingerprint scanners going to be a thing? Are buffets at these resort hotels are they going to be a thing? So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see.
It is. Now I want to, we've done a lot of Anaheim talk. I want to kind of focus now that we've kind of dipped our toe into Orlando a little bit with the hotel.
A little bit.
Let's start talking about some Epcot, because Epcot's going through a major transformation right now.
What a time to do that!
What a time! And they shut down. It's basically DCA circa like 2009, 2010, when everything was like a construction
Yeah.
site. And that's basically where Epcot's at right now.
Yes.
So what are your feelings in regards to Epcot, in regards to all this? Are we going to see some scaling back? Are they going to go full force with it? What are your thoughts on that?
So, man, they've really caught themselves in a bind with Epcot, because it's like half a Communicore's been destroyed now. A lot of that place is ripped up. What happens here? I mean, you could compare it to DCA, but it's so much bigger than DCA. It's DCA supersized, from the 2007, 2012 kind of era. It's the problems that you encounter with any of these other projects, just widen that out and put it on a massive scale on one of the largest theme parks that Disney has within their inventory. I mean, it's crazy. So I think you're going to have to approach each one of these projects and say, what do we open now? What do we open later? Do we stretch out this construction project in a way that, any problems that are incurred with this thing, to give them time to work themselves out? I think the very entrance, in front of Spaceship Earth, I think those things get settled. I think, it's like we have to still have an entrance. We have to go forward with those. Maybe the idea for the Communicore replacement, the big platform that they were going to have, maybe that gets pushed back a little bit there. The Moana water attraction that they were going to have, the walkthrough attraction, maybe that goes forward. That's, oh my goodness. That's something that, man, they were in the middle of it, and it's like they destroyed almost all of Future World for this thing, and it's like, oh yeah, your theme park attendance, that might be significantly altered, just to let you know. Good luck. It's like, so, but to expand Epcot out, it's like, look, Epcot, we know it's got a lot of space.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of space already, and it gets brutally hot over there. So to expand my point, what if a place like Epcot is open and you're limiting it to outdoor experiences? You're, implementing a measure where people must wear face masks. You're encouraging social distancing, and maybe you have like a the Food and Wine Festival, and you just limit experiences outdoors. I think we can see that. I think Epcot lends itself to be open in this era, slowly but surely.
Yeah. And one glimmer of hope I think I have for that. You said that one festival area that it's like a double.
Yeah, it's like a raised platform almost. It's totally like, whoa! I did not expect something like that to come out. But yeah, it's like this elevated platform, really, and it's supposed to be an area that it really lends itself to these festivals that seem to be in Epcot's future for sure.
So I think that because of that, and not to get too cynical here, but there's probably going to be, in regards to that bi-level festival area, probably going to be a lot of alcohol sales and what have you. I think because of that aspect, because of the potential money involved with that.
Oh, interesting.
It's possible that one makes it.
Okay, well, yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, there are some fiscal things attached to these things, aren't there? There are some money-making opportunities you have to factor in.
Yeah, with the alcohol sales with that one, I think that there's a possibility. I think that's the kind of the glimmer of hope with that one, so to speak, because I can just see them going, well, no, that one has to stay. We got too much money, potential money on the table with that one.
That's interesting. Now, to just to talk openly about this, it's quite interesting how they dedicated so much to have this kind of festival flex space. I mean, I find that very fascinating, because remember, the festivals, to kind of bring it back home, they were born out of necessity. Remember Epcot, post 2001, it was like, whoa, our attendance dropped significantly. We got to get people in the doors here. We got to get these occupancy rates up, and the festivals were kind of like saying, hey, maybe we do this kind of short-term thing. They tried it in Disney California, eventually it didn't work, but initially. But in Epcot, it was like, hey, maybe we try these kind of seasonal events and maybe get these occupancy rates up. And they were so successful that they've never taken them away. It's just always been with Epcot ever since that event. And so now to look at the reinvigoration or reconfiguration or renewal or whatever you want to call it of Epcot, to have that integrated so heavily into its new design, I think it's very fascinating.
It is. It shows you the direction they're going. It's these festivals are not going anywhere, and it's part of Epcot now, and it's going to be part of Epcot for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of money involved in those festivals, and I think that again, not to be cynical, but the money talks, and I think that that's what's going to that's the driving force. And they're fun. People enjoy them. They really are fun to be able to go and experience the food and wine and drink around the world and all that fun stuff.
And I think Epcot lends itself beautifully to that. Yeah. I think it's awesome.
Definitely. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I mean, Epcot's an interesting animal, and this whole reimagining of that park is really, man, I feel bad for that park in a way because it really landed at the wrong time.
Oh my goodness, it couldn't be a worse time.
Yeah,
couldn't be the worst time.
Now to stay on Florida, how do you think that this whole situation pans out for Walt Disney World's 50th? Because the 50th is because I know the official 50th is October of 2021, right?
Yes.
But I think the festivities were supposed to start this October, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that. You know how Disney likes to stretch these things out.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a golden anniversary for them, and it's like, look, we gotta milk this thing. That was already part of the idea there. I thought I heard something where they were going to kind of start it in October of 2020. If we look at the 50th back at Disneyland as any indication, I think didn't it start at like March?
It was May 5th of 2005.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But then it went on, I think, until like September of 2006 or something. I mean, it went on for a long time.
It went on for a long time. We can only, imagine that kind of thing would take place at Walt Disney World. I think there are two parts of this. One is it's like, okay, yeah, maybe we have to scale some things back that we were going to do. Maybe we have to reallocate funds to stuff that like needs to get done. Tron, Guardians of the Galaxy, that kind of thing. But I think it's almost, just to find a silver lining here. Again, you're going to need something to bring people back in. What better way of bringing people back in than with a golden anniversary that is Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary? I think that right there, it's like, look, we were already preparing for people to come back in. We were already like, now it's like a necessity. Now it's like, hey, we need people to come back in. Let's pour our heart and souls into this thing. Let's get people excited about coming back here. I think that right there might be the big reawakening that Walt Disney World will need in kind of this long-term thing to get people back into the park, get people going back into theme parks in a big way. Again, maybe the perception, like I said, of this current pandemic changes dramatically when we get to that point where they actually start the festivities of the 50th. I think good things happen. I'm really optimistic.
Now, to kind of close this out, you mentioned to me before we started that you wanted to talk about some things that have changed since the last video that we've done. Yeah. I'm giving you the floor.
Okay, you're giving me the floor. Okay, sorry. I do apologize. Yeah, so, right when we actually filmed that show last week, we had stated that, the president was going to unveil some opening guidelines. And now we know it's a 3-phase plan. I think when it comes to that, it lends itself for the opportunity for the theme parks to open sooner rather than later. I know Bob Iger has already made known Gavin Newsom's economic advisory opening task force. And then for Florida, what is it? I believe the governor has his own task force. I think the mayor of Orange County is involved as well. Maybe he might have his own separate thing. But I know Bob Iger, Thomas Maslum, who works as a executive for the theme parks and resorts side of the Disney business, and Josh D'Amaro has also been added to that list, just recently announced. So they're really coming in, and they're really wanting to get back on board sooner rather than later. Good. And like I said, I mean, good. I think if you look at this virus on a kind of, you know, what is to say, what are its strengths and weaknesses? If you come up with a procedure and you tailor it to the disadvantages of this virus, I think these things do open, and I think they open in a very safe and efficient way. So it's very, very encouraging signs just on the forefront. It looks real nice. Well, if I had to guess, maybe we might get an announcement within the next couple of months of what Disney wants to do here. So that's a good sign. And then to close at a point that we brought up with Baby Yoda, one of the comments in our last video went into some detail about maybe why that whole thing took place. And, I want to just say I didn't really invest myself fully into the development of Mandalorian, and especially after it came out, because I really wanted to stay surprised. And so I may have overlooked some things, and that's my bad. We're always trying to get better, and we do appreciate the feedback. So yeah, apparently with Baby Yoda, it might have been a joint thing with the creators of the show. Okay. And Bob Iger specifically, just saying, hey, look, we don't want any merchandise produced on this specific aspect of the show because we really want to keep this spoiler free as long as possible. And again, maybe a constriction, maybe with less people, if there is a silver lining in that. I know it's a very, very trying time for the company, but maybe if there is a silver lining, maybe with certain aspects like that, things don't leak as easily. So, maybe that has something to do with it. We'll see. Okay. All right. Well, Dre, I appreciate you coming on again. You're a friend of the channel. You're always welcome. I will definitely have you on again. And yeah, I'd very much like to come back after those. Apparently, they have a shareholders meeting or a quarterly earnings call. Is it May 5th or May 4th? I believe it's May 5th. Yeah, May 5th. So we will definitely plan on that. Oh boy. And honestly, I don't think people understand how dire the situation is. I think you hear people say, they should just keep the parks closed until 2021 until the back. It's like, no, that is they are not in a position for that. I think you said it too on social media. You were like, hey, I don't think there's going to be a Disney to come back to, if this thing doesn't open quickly. And I think I very much believe you were right. I mean, from what I understand, that the situation is like, something's got to change. Like, this is not sustainable for the long term. And I think that shareholders call or quarterly earnings call will definitely put it into some perspective of what they're going through. It's going to be very interesting. And once that happens, I will bring you on. We're going to have a whole video on that. That's going to be fun. It's going to be very interesting for sure. Well, thank you, Dre, and thank everyone for watching. I really do appreciate it. Dre, before we go, where can they find you on social media? Social media, you can find me at Vash Sky. So V as in Victor, ASH as in hotel, and then SKY. That's, what is it? Sam Kilo Yankee? Yeah, is that right? Yeah. So that's where you can find me, and I'm all over the place. So I think I've written a couple articles for Mouse Info, and so you can find me in a variety of places. Perfect. Well, thank you, Dre, for coming on again, and thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.